Welcome, Age of Vintage Society. Actress Anne Francis, who was the love interest in the 1950s science fiction classic Forbidden Planet, and later was a sexy private eye in Honey West on TV. Francis was a stunningly beautiful blonde with a prominent beauty mark on Hollywood. How Anne Francis conquered Hollywood as the female James Bond. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Anne Francis, Hollywood's ice-cool blonde. Anne Francis will enlighten her casual fans and earn a nod of agreement from her die-hard admirers. The star of such 1950s cinematic classics as Bad Day at Black Rock, Blackboard Jungle and Forbidden Planet, Anne made the risky decision to transplant her talents to television, and as a result, her acting has often been taken for granted. But TV supplied her with the groundbreaking title role in Honey West, where she became the first leading actress to portray a private detective on a regular weekly series. All of Anne Francis's film and television appearances are chronicled, including a full episode guide for Honey West and a complete listing of her guest roles on such series as The Twilight Zone, The Untouchables and Murder, She Wrote. Her latter work marked the first appearance of a female detective character's name in the title of a TV series. The actress, who had roles in more than 30 movies, achieved cult status as Altera in the cult classic. Anne Francis got into show business quite early in life. Anne Lloyd Francis was born on September 16, 1930, in Ossining, New York, which is near Sing Sing Prison. The only child of Philip Ward Francis, a businessman, salesman, and the former Edith Albertson. A natural little beauty, she became a John Robert Powers model at age 6 to help her family during the Great Depression, and swiftly moved into radio soap work and television in New York. By age of 11 she was making her stage debut on Broadway, playing the child version of Gertrude Lawrence in the Star's 1941 hit vehicle Lady in the Dark. During this productive time she attended New York's professional children's school. After a childhood career in New York radio and television and on the Broadway stage, Francis arrived in Hollywood when she landed a movie contract at MGM. "I didn't come from a show business family. Neither of my parents were involved in it," she said. "Actually, someone said to my mum that they thought I'd make a good child model, so she took me up to the John Roberts Powers modelling agency, which was one of the top ones in New York City at that time. We were sitting in the outer office with a lot of other folks, and Mr. Powers himself came out of his office door, looked around the corner, pointed at me and said, 'I'll take that one.' And that's how it all started, when I was just 6 years old." She later went to 20th Century Fox, then returned to MGM, and the two big studios afforded her the chance to act opposite the biggest male stars of the day. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer put the lovely blue-eyed wavy blonde hopeful under contract during the post-World War II years. While Anne appeared in a couple of obscure Bobby Soxer bits, nothing much came of it. Frustrated at the standard cheesecake treatment she was receiving in Hollywood, the serious-minded actress trekked back to New York, where she appeared to good notice on television's golden age drama and found some summer stock work on the sly, My Sister Eileen. Discovered and signed by 20th Century's Fox Darrell F. Zanuck after playing a seductive childbearing juvenile delinquent in the low-budget film So Young, So Bad, Anne soon starred in a number of promising ingenue roles, including Elopement, Lydia Bailey and Dreamboat, but she still could not seem to rise above the starlet typecast. At MGM she found promising leading lady work in a few noteworthy 1950s classic, Bad Day at Black Rock, Blackboard Jungle, and the science fiction cult classic Forbidden Planet. Francis, a stunningly beautiful blonde with a prominent beauty mark, appeared opposite such stars as Spencer Tracy, Paul Newman, Robert Taylor and Glenn Ford in some of the most popular films of the 1950s, but Forbidden Planet and Honey West made her reputation. Her roles still emphasised more her glam appeal than her acting capabilities. Her signature trademarks were her blonde hair, smouldering good looks, and a small mole just to the right of her lower lip. Said mole was even written into the script of one of her films. Columnist Hedda Hopper tells the inside story of why Ava Gardner replaced Anne in Snows of Kilimanjaro. The part was first written for Ava, but she went on suspension for turning down a picture at Metro. Since 20th couldn't borrow her under those conditions, Anne was announced for the role. Ava's suspension was suddenly lifted, making her eligible for work at 20th, and that studio snagged her quickly. Forbidden Planet was hailed as one of the most ambitious and intelligent films of its genre. A science fiction retelling of Shakespeare's The Tempest, the 1956 film had Leslie Nielsen and other space travellers visiting a planet where expatriate scientist Walter Pidgeon, his daughter Frances, and their helper Robbie the Robot built a settlement. Before filming began, the actors held a meeting and agreed to be as serious about this film as we could be, Frances said in a 1999 interview. We could have hammed it up, but we wanted to be as sincere as we could, she said. Astronauts in the 23rd century are sent to the distant planet Altair 4 to find out why a previous expedition has disappeared. Once there, they find the reclusive Professor Morbius living with his beautiful daughter Altera, Anne Francis, and an amazing robot named Robbie, who has a distinct personality and human traits. Morbius tells the astronauts that some unknown force killed the other settlers and shows them the vast underground city of the Krell, the long-dead natives of Altair 4. An invisible monster starts killing the astronauts, who discover that the monster is a projection of Morbius's subconscious, unleashed by his experiments with the mind-expanding machinery of the Krell. Forbidden Planet is a movie swimming in firsts. First big-budget science fiction movie, the miniskirt is interesting, the garment is connected to the gorgeous visage of Anne Francis. As iconic a presence in the movie as Robbie the Robot, the camera loves Anne Francis, and she is, I suspect, responsible for the project being green-lit in the first place. She was the kind of woman who made you want to drop to your knees and thank God you were a man. In Blackboard Jungle, the landmark 1955 film about an idealistic teacher in a violent city school, Francis played his pregnant wife, who is targeted for harassment by one of his students. Among her other films, Bad Day at Black Rock with Tracy and Robert Ryan, Rogue Cop with Taylor, The Rack with Newman, A Lion is in the Streets with James Cagney, and Hook, Line and Sinker opposite Jerry Lewis. The curvaceous blonde, 5'8" Francis, with a becoming little mole next to her mouth, was never eye-proof, especially during the films of the 1950s that launched her career proper and sealed her fame. When her movie career declined, Francis became active in television. She disappeared for many years into television, only to emerge spasmodically onto the big screen to remind audiences that she was still around. I had reached the end of my rope as a contract player at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. They were always looking for a new face, so I thought, forget it, I want to go back and do television. In those days, that was the death knell for an actor. You worked in television, you didn't do film. Of course, they cross over all the time today. Among the films in which she starred was Girl of the Night, a bold, for the time, and gritty film noir in which she portrayed a high-priced prostitute exploited by her madam and pimp until she finds help in psychotherapy. It is the one film I'm most proud of, Francis said. I was going through analysis at the same time, and I was playing going through analysis on that film. It was quite a workout, and it really beat me up. Francis's grab bag of work throughout her life appearances, many cult films and guest shows on countless TV dramas and crime shows. Her greatest claim to fame, and what ought to be known by every pop culture buff. In 1965 and 1966 she co-starred as the title character in Honey West. In Honey West, Francis's private detective character, who kept a pet ocelot, a wildcat, was a female James Bond, sexy, stylish, and as good with martial arts as she was with a gun. She was nominated for an Emmy for the role, which lasted 30 episodes. "A lot of people speak to me about Honey West," Francis recalled. "The character made young women think there was more they could reach for. It encouraged a lot of people." Honey West, created by the husband-wife writing team of Gloria and Skip Fickling, was conceived as a mash-up of Marilyn Monroe and Mickey Spillane's Mike Hammer, a gorgeous, stylish lady private eye, with her pet ocelot Bruce and her professional partner Sam Bolt, John Erickson. She solves crimes for a price, using a variety of James Bond-style gadgets and her own martial arts fighting skills. Honor Blackman, Pussy Galore in Goldfinger, was approached to play the part, but turned it down. With Francis one can see the comparison, though. The women share a forbidding kind of beauty. They both seem more likely to kick you in the balls than be receptive to your advances, and that's a necessary quality in a universe so awash in oily men, constantly on the make, needing to be made to come to heel. The creators place such a premium of style, cramming as much cool as possible into every moment, that qualities like character, story and substance are left behind, choking in the dust of the inevitable sports car. Francis appeared in 2 episodes of Charlie's Angels, a blast from the past for those in the know. She worked steadily, mostly in TV guest shots, through 1999, when she appeared on Fantasy Island. She came back one last time in 2004 for an episode of Without a Trace. In 2007 she was diagnosed with lung cancer and immediately underwent chemotherapy and had surgery to remove part of her right lung, but she succumbed 4 years later. Francis's early marriage to actor Bam Price ended in divorce. In addition to Jane, Francis and her second husband, Robert Abeloff, had another daughter, Maggie, before divorcing. She has 2 daughters, Jane Elizabeth Abeloff and Margaret Frances West. Margaret was adopted in May of 1970. The adoption was one of the first granted to a single parent in the state of California. During a career that spanned more than 5 decades, her guest star credits were voluminous. Francis starred in many movies of the week and guest starred on a multitude of sitcoms. For such a promising start and with such amazing stamina and longevity, the girl with the sexy beauty mark probably deserved better, yet in reflection her output, especially in her character years, has been strong and varied, and her realistic take on the whole Hollywood industry quite balanced. She has long been involved with a metaphysical-based church, channeling her own thoughts and feelings into the inspirational 1982 book Voices from Home, An Inner Journey. On its back cover she wrote that the book is my spiritual expose. It is about our essence of being, the inner workings of mind and spirit which contribute to the growth of the invisible and most important part of us. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Anne Francis? She made a deep impact on Hollywood history as the first leading actress to portray a private detective.